scripture reading is found in Mark chapter 10, verses 42 through 52, the story of blind Bartimaeus. Then they came to Jericho as Jesus and his disciples, together with a large crowd, were leaving the city. A blind man, Bartimaeus, which means son of Timaeus, was sitting by the roadside begging. When he heard that it was Jesus of Nazareth, he began to shout, "Jesus, Son of David, have mercy on me." Many rebuked him and told him to be quiet. But he shouted all the more, "Son of David, have mercy on me." Jesus stopped and said, "Call him." So they called to the blind man, "Cheer up, or be of good courage. On your feet, he's calling you." Throwing his cloak aside, he jumped to his feet, and he came to Jesus. "What do you want me to do for you?" Jesus asked him. The blind man said, "Rabbi, I want to see." "Go," said Jesus, "your faith has healed you." Immediately he received his sight, and he followed Jesus along the road. The story of Bartimaeus is a fascinating story. The first thing that we know about him is that he is his name. He is called Bartimaeus, which means the son of Timaeus. The interesting thing about this is that Mark very rarely tells you the name of anybody that Jesus encounters. And yet, in this case, we are told his name, which leads us to believe that somewhere along the line, Bartimaeus became known to the church in Rome, which is to where Mark's gospel was directed. The second thing that we're told about him is we know that he lives in Jericho. Jericho is a famous city. It was the city that Joshua conquered first when he began his conquest of the land of Israel. This is where we get the famous song, "Joshua fit the battle of Jericho, Jericho, and the walls came tumbling down." But Jericho in Jesus' day actually consisted of two cities. The original city had been destroyed, it had been rebuilt, it had been destroyed, it had been rebuilt, and now in Jesus' day it's in great disrepair. But there was another part of the city, a brand new addition built by Herod the Great, where he had put his winter palace. And so this part of the city was very ornate, very rich, very popular place. Jericho in Jesus' day, as it is today, is a place of great agriculture. It has wonderful, wonderful weather. If you go to the Holy Lands with us, you'll get to see that. And it was the gateway to the Dead Sea, to the Jordan River. Now, when the pilgrims would come to Jerusalem on the high holy days, and that's why you have a map there, is that people coming from the north, Galilee, would not come straight down the Jordan River on the west side, because that would take you through Samaria. And the Jews would not have anything to do with Samaria. And so as soon as they got just south of the Sea of Galilee, they would cross over to the eastern side of the Jordan River. They would come down south on the east side of the Jordan River until they got to the fords of Jericho. They would then cross the Jordan River back over to the west side and then walk 5 miles into Jericho. And then from there, they would take a day or two to rest, and then they would begin the 18-mile hike from 1,000 feet below sea level to 3,000 feet above sea level to go to Jerusalem. And it is this Jericho road that Jesus used as the background for his parable of the Good Samaritan. Bartimaeus was blind. In the Greek, Bartimaeus asked that he might see again, which leads us to believe that at one time he had vision. Now somehow he has lost it. We do not know how old Bartimaeus was, or is. We don't know how it was that he lost his sight. All we know is that Bartimaeus is now blind. Bartimaeus is a beggar. He sits by the roadside. He begs for his existence. Lifts his hand out, and he is dependent upon the generosity of friends and strangers to meet his daily needs. Bartimaeus listens. He gets all of his cues for the world from what he hears. He can't see anything, but he hears everything. He hears what people say. He hears what people say about other things. He listens. Bartimaeus can't see others, but you realize that an awful lot of people never see Bartimaeus either. He's become invisible. He recognizes people by their voices and by their footsteps. He recognizes the friendly footsteps, the friendly voices of those who are generous to him. So when he hears their voices and their footsteps, he sits up tall and he puts out his hand and he greets them with a smile. And he asks for bread or money. But he also recognizes the mean footsteps, the mean voices, and he cowers. He prepares himself for a punch or a curse or a kick. And as strange as the idiom is, how does a blind man look forward? But nonetheless, Bartimaeus looks forward to the high holy days, when the number of pilgrims greatly increases. People are traveling through Jericho and staying in Jericho before they begin their way to Jerusalem, or they come back from Jerusalem and stay in Jericho before they head back towards Galilee. Because it's during the high holy days, such as Passover, that Bartimaeus has the greatest opportunities to increase his income from his begging. So now what I want you to do is I want you to put yourself into the story, to listen to the story, to hear the story. Every day Bartimaeus would make his way from where it was that he slept. He would wrap himself up in his cloak. And he would go and he would head towards his favorite spot on the road to Jericho, where he would sit, where he would beg, where he would ask for help. He would recognize the voices of the ones who were kind to him, and he would sit up tall, and he would raise his hand, and he would ask for generosity. Alms, please. Oftentimes he would take his shawl or his cloak, and he would lay it down in front of him so that it might catch the coins that people would give to him or throw to him. And then sometimes he would hear the voices of the people who were mean to him. He would try to shrink down and make himself invisible, avoid their punches and their curses. But on this particular day, he hears lots of people. There's a crowd coming. And he knows that Passover is just a week or so away. And he realizes that these are pilgrims. And so he sits up tall and he cries out and he says, alms for the poor, for the blind. And the crowd begins to go by. There's a few coins which are tossed towards him, and he nods. And then he hears people talking that Jesus of Nazareth is walking by. Now Bartimaeus, he hears everything. He hears people talking, and he's heard about Jesus of Nazareth. He's heard that this Jesus of Nazareth, that he fed the 5,000, that he cast out demons. He'd even heard that he gives sight to the blind. So Bartimaeus begins to wonder, is this the same Jesus of Nazareth? And he has nothing to lose. And so he calls out, Jesus, Son of David, have mercy upon me. Jesus, Son of David, have mercy upon me. It's interesting that Bartimaeus calls him Son of David. He could have called him Rabbi. He could have called him good friend or kind sir. But in just that short moment, Bartimaeus ascribes to him a messianic title. Bartimaeus evidently at some time had heard the passages in Isaiah and in Psalms which speak of the coming Messiah as the one who proclaims good news to the poor. And who's poorer than Bartimaeus? And he gives sight to the blind. And that this is the sign of the Messiah, the Son of David. And so Bartimaeus cries out, Jesus, Son of David, have mercy on me. But the crowd, he hears the footsteps retreating. So he cries out louder, Jesus, Son of David. And then he hears one of the mean voices. Shut up. Be quiet. You're making a nuisance of yourself. Bartimaeus, he cowers, expecting a punch. But then he sits up tall again. And he cries out even louder, Jesus, Son of David, have mercy upon me. And then suddenly it gets quiet. The crowd stops. Jesus stops. Bartimaeus, he can't see any of this. But he senses it. He knows it. He hears the shuffling of feet as people shift side to side. He hears their clothing rustling. He hears the whispering. He senses it in the same way that we can sense the coming of a thunderstorm. The air becomes charged with electricity. You feel the humidity. There's the smell of ozone in the air from the lightning. Bartimaeus, all of his senses are on high alert. He senses spiritual ozone. And he listens and he anticipates. He hears the people whispering to each other. What's going on? Why are we stopping? What's Jesus doing? Who is that person that was yelling? So Bartimaeus calls out again, not quite so loud this time. Jesus, Son of David, have mercy on me. It comes out as a question. And then he hears a voice. As Jesus says, call him. Now before Bartimaeus can even react, the mean voice, the mean footstep, he says, take courage. He doesn't say it quite as mean as he did before when he told him to shut up. But he says, take courage. Have heart. Cheer up. He's calling you. Well, that's all Bartimaeus needs to know. He jumps up, he throws his cloak off. Everything that he has, all of his possessions, his coins, what meager coins he has, they're ringing in the pavement. And he starts to make his way. He knows every step, but he wants to go quickly, but he doesn't want to stumble, and he knows where he needs to. He follows the voice, and as he starts to walk, he feels the crowd partying around him. He can't see him, but he feels them, and he continues to walk, and then he knows that he's right in front of Jesus. And he hears him say to him, what do you want me to do for you? Nobody's ever asked that Bartimaeus before. asked me, what do I want? I'm a beggar. I want bread. I want food. I want money. I want people to be nice to me. And yet somehow Bartimaeus knows that the Son of David is asking something much deeper than that. What do you want me to do? And so Bartimaeus thinks deeper. And he realizes, I don't want bread. I don't want money. I don't want life to be easier. I want to see. I want to see again. Now Bartimaeus had no way of knowing that just a few days earlier there was a rich young man who had come to Jesus. And he had a burr in his saddle. Under his saddle, he knew that even in spite of his riches and his power and his influence and his having lived a righteous and good life, that something was still missing, that he was blind to something. And so he asked Jesus, what do I need to do in order to inherit the kingdom of heaven? And Jesus said, yes, you are blind. There is one thing you lack. You need to sell all that you have and give it to the poor. Then you'll have treasure in heaven, and then come follow me. And this rich young man, he went away sad because he was very rich. And he couldn't give stuff away. He didn't recognize that his greatest need was to follow Jesus. So he goes away sad. And the disciples are baffled by this. If the rich don't make it to heaven, who gets in? Jesus tells them it's easier for a camel to go through the eye of a needle than it is for a rich man to enter into the kingdom of heaven. Bartimaeus had no way of knowing that 3 times Jesus had said to his disciples, I'm on my way to Jerusalem, and there I'm going to be betrayed, I'm going to be arrested, I'm going to be beaten, I'm going to be crucified, I'm going to die, and on the 3rd day I'm going to rise from the grave. Bartimaeus had no way of knowing that the disciples, they had ignored Jesus, they had pretended that they didn't know what he was talking about. They were concerned about status. They were blind as to what it means to be great in the kingdom of heaven. So when Jesus asked them and said, what do you want me to do for you? They said, you're the Son of David. You're the Messiah. You have a kingdom. When you come into your kingdom, let one of us sit upon your right hand and the other to sit upon your left. Because be great. Be the ones who call the shots. So now here is Bartimaeus. Jesus says to him, what do you want me to do for you? Bartimaeus could have asked for money. He could have asked for a place in the kingdom. Instead, he says, I want to see. I want to see. It's amazing how much Bartimaeus saw in such a short time period. Disciples who had traveled with Jesus for 3 years were still blind. Bartimaeus, who was blind, saw so much in that brief encounter. Look at his faith. He recognized Jesus as the Son of David and addressed him as such. When Jesus called him, he threw away everything which the rich man could not do. He followed Jesus, came to him. And then when Jesus asked him, what do you need? Bartimaeus searched down and he found his greatest need. And he asked Jesus, I want to see. Bartimaeus could not see that Jesus was smiling. But he was. And so it was logical what Jesus said next. Go. Your faith made you well. Immediately, Bartimaeus could see. The first face that he saw was the healing face of Jesus. He saw the eyes of love looking into him. Now Bartimaeus, he could have gone back into Jericho and he could have found the kind voices, the friendly footsteps, and thanked them for their generosity. He could have gone and found the mean voices and the mean footsteps and rebuked them or taunted them. But instead, what did he do? He followed Jesus to Jerusalem and then to the long road to Calvary. If Jesus were walking by, would you recognize him? We recognize him? I'm not sure I would recognize him. I realize that he is the Son of David, the Messiah. And then when Jesus says, what do you want me to do for you? What's my deepest need? How many of us would say, well, I want more money. I want power. I want prestige. I want this. I want that. The superficial. Rather than examining what is my deepest need. I know that there are some in this congregation that if Jesus were to ask you, what do you want me to do for you? Your deepest need is your health, or the health of a loved one, family member. And you would ask for Jesus to heal them. But I would challenge us that it might just be that their health, our health is the cloak and the coins that we need to cast aside. That our greatest need is to trust. That even though we die, yet shall we live again. And our loved ones that we will see again. And that these bodies, they are going to fail. They're not designed to live forever, but we're going to receive a new body that does. There are some that I know in this congregation that relationships are in trouble. Marriage is in trouble. Marriages of your family members in trouble. Discord and problems with children. Upset with parents, siblings, and each other. Discord. And if Jesus says, what do you want me to do for you? You want peace in my family. I want those things to work out. And again, I would challenge us that that might just be the cloak and the coins and the staff that we need to toss aside. That perhaps what our greatest need is to be able to see that relationships are precious. That we are created in the image of God. And what we need to seek is a relationship with Jesus. Because when we get that relationship right, the other relationships will resolve themselves. Then there are some that I know that if Jesus says, what do you want me to do for you? You're concerned about what's happening at work or what's happening at school or worried about a job or you're worried about changes and things that are happening in your life. And again, I would think that maybe that might be the cloak and the coins that we need to toss aside. We need to hear Jesus' words again when he says, why do you worry about what you're going to eat or what you're going to drink or what you're going to wear? By worrying about these things, you can't add 1 minute to your life. And your Father knows that you need all of these things. Consider the birds of the air, they neither sow nor reap, yet your Father provides for them. And these lilies, these flowers, they are clothed more splendidly than Solomon was in all of his glory, and yet they are here today. They are gone tomorrow. What is our deepest need? Seek first the kingdom of God, his righteousness. Then all these things shall be yours as well. My challenge for us today is that Jesus does call, and he does ask us, what do you want me to do for you? What truly is your deepest